The Rule of 93 and its foundations in the Rule of 1793. 1. Introduction. The Rule of 93 is a rarely discussed but increasingly referenced principle among researchers of international law, sovereignty, and global trust structures. It is often mentioned in connection with the historical Rule of 1793, which pertains to significant legal and financial shifts that took place at the end of the 18th century under the authority of international and maritime law. Understanding these two rules requires a deep dive into global legal systems, trust law, and the history of sovereign debt and nation-state restructuring. 2. What is the Rule of 93? The Rule of 93 is not widely documented in mainstream legal literature, but in alternative legal and sovereignty communities, it is believed to refer to a principle embedded in international trust and commercial law. The rule allegedly stipulates that after 93 years, certain trusts, debts, or claims must either be settled, renewed, or presumed extinguished, depending on the specific legal framework or contractual terms involved. This rule is thought to derive from common law trust principles, specifically, the rule against perpetuities, which limits the duration of certain legal interests in property. The number 93 is symbolic of 3 generations or approximately a century, a duration often referenced in long-term financial and trust structures. 3. Connection to the Rule of 1793. The Rule of 1793 refers to a legal precedent and shift in international commercial and maritime law following the Napoleonic Wars, the American Revolution, and the global colonial restructuring that began in the late 18th century. Key historical context. 1793 marks the beginning of Britain's war with revolutionary France. This was a pivotal period for establishing admiralty and maritime rules governing neutral commerce and wartime behavior. It is also tied to the emergence of the Rothschild international banking system, the formation of global debt trusts, and the acceleration of financial instruments like bills of exchange and government securities. Some sovereignty researchers assert that 1793 marked the legal codification of international debt structures, which led to the registration of sovereign entities as commercial vessels in maritime jurisdiction, the presumption of debt and bankruptcy status of nations, including the United States, which many argue became a corporate entity under international maritime law after 1933, paralleling a 140-year cycle. 4. Practical interpretation of the Rule of 93. The Rule of 93 is often interpreted as follows. If a trust or debt is created and remains unchallenged or unsettled for 93 years, the equitable interest may revert to the original beneficiary if properly claimed. Alternatively, after 93 years of inaction, the trustee or creditor may presume full control over the assets. It implies that long-standing financial obligations may be renewed, discharged, or reconsolidated if not actively managed or rebutted. This rule is applied symbolically to understand Cesta Kvi trusts created from birth certificates and SSNs. The timing of nationwide debt reorganizations, such as the 1933 U.S. bankruptcy under House Joint Resolution 192, the renewal or collapse of silent financial agreements between states and creditors. 5. Legal and commercial implications. If the Rule of 93 is valid under specific international law constructs, it suggests individuals and nations who fail to rebut or respond to trust assumptions may lose equitable interest after 93 years. Governments or corporations holding legal title through silence or presumption may gain full control of assets, via maritime/admiralty jurisdiction. A notice of claim, rebuttal of presumption, or assertion of equitable rights within the 93-year period may preserve or reassert the rights of the original party. 6. Symbolism and numerology. The number 93 also holds symbolic meaning. In Thelema, a philosophical and spiritual tradition developed by Aleister Crowley, 93 represents will and love, indicating a lawful expression of intent. In Masonic and esoteric traditions, 93 can signify completion, transition, or transformation over generations. In commercial law, 93 years often aligns with lifetime plus a generation, which affects inheritance, trust, and corporate structuring. 7. Conclusion. Though not universally acknowledged in statutory law, the Rule of 93 appears as a foundational principle in sovereignty movements, trust law interpretations, and international commercial law theories. Its connection to the Rule of 1793 reveals a legal and financial system built upon centuries of structured debt, maritime law, and presumed trust arrangements. Understanding these rules helps decode the deeper infrastructure of our legal identities, debt obligations, and sovereign rights. Recommended resources: Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, Trust Law, Maritime Law, Constitutor. House Joint Resolution 192, 1933. Geneva Conventions on Trust and Commercial Law. The Law of Nations by Emer de Vittel. Research on Cesta Kvi Trusts. Uniform Commercial Code, UCC, Articles 3 and 9.